Warning signs on the road to recovery for some in the manufacturing industry. The Association of Equipment Manufacturers has released a survey shows the negative impact of COVID-19 on that industry. And Kip Eidelberg joins us now. Kip, the Senior Vice President of Government and Industry Relations for that association. And it's kind of along the lines of at least the state the president is in now in Wisconsin, and I'm sure many of your members are in these key states that will come up again, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, in the presidential election. So let me go over a little bit of what you learned. First, on the economic side, a third in your survey said they have furloughed up to half their employees. But of those who furloughed the workers, a third said they're not going to bring anyone back to work. So that doesn't sound great. But tell us what we should take away economically from what you're learning in this survey of manufacturers.
Thanks for having me on, Connell. And yeah, there really is no way to sugarcoat this. Equipment manufacturers continue to face decreased demand, stressed supply chains, and the industry has a long and uncertain road ahead. As you mentioned, according to our survey, a third of those equipment manufacturers who have furloughed workers will not bring them back. But I think even more ominously for the future is that 80% of those equipment manufacturers who have laid workers off will not rehire them based on current market conditions. So there's a strong sense of urgency here on getting the economy back up and running, Connell.
And as we look at that urgency, we also have the spike in virus cases in a number of states, certainly not everywhere. It's not across the board, but we have a number of states that we've been watching very closely this week. Now, the issues that your members are facing, when you ask them about that was the number one answer was health. That's still their biggest concern, even though they're losing money and they're concerned about ramping up production and the like. Health, right, Kip, that's the biggest thing for most people.
Yeah, absolutely, Connell. It's been the number one priority of our industry since the beginning of this unprecedented health crisis, to keep our employees healthy and to keep them safe and to keep them on the job. And speaking to that, you mentioned the jobs numbers earlier. Let me give you another example of what our industry is facing. 700 municipalities have stopped critical infrastructure projects. There is a severe revenue crisis at state and local level, as much as a $550 billion shortfall. And the federal government is really the only one who can step in and bridge that gap. And if they do so, Connell, not only will we see an uptick in demand for new equipment, but those equipment manufacturers who have furloughed and laid workers off will be able to bring them back. And more importantly, we'll be able to rehire and create new jobs in states such as Wisconsin, where the president is today, and where we support 187,000 jobs.
So that brings us to the next step in the Congress. So after the 4th, after the holiday, there's supposed to be some negotiations on this next round of relief or stimulus or whatever you want to call it. What specifically are you guys pushing for, and how would you like to see that structured to help your industry? It seems like state and local aid is important, but what else?
Yeah, state and local aid is critical, as I mentioned. Beyond that, we have small and medium-sized equipment manufacturers who are running out of cash. And so we'd like to see more support for them in the form of credit or bridge loans. The Main Street Lending Program looks promising, but does not yet meet all the specific requirements of our industry. So that would be a step in the right direction if Congress can agree to something along those lines. Obviously, continued regulatory relief would also help our industry as they continue to struggle. And finally, obviously, tariffs continue to take their toll on our industry. So relief on that front would be helpful as well.
Yeah, we almost forget about trade, but then it comes up every now and again, like it did this week with Europe. How worried are you, though, about the spike that I mentioned earlier in some of these states? Because you'll get local leaders, like, for example, this might not affect you as much, but just we had the mayor of Miami on a week and a half ago. And a lot of that state in Florida was going to go from phase 2 to phase 3, and he said, no, we're not doing that in Miami. So in another state, it could happen in Wisconsin or some other state. The state might be moving and a local area could be hit, and they might have to roll things back. How worried are you about the economic recovery can be slower than some people thought because of the spikes that we're seeing?
Yeah, we are very worried, Connell. equipment manufacturers have been fortunate in that we were designated as an essential industry at the onset of the pandemic. And so by and large, our members have been operating. They've kept their employees on the job. But obviously, if we start to move backwards here on the economic recovery, both in terms of the ability to keep employees safe on the shop floor, which is obviously the only way that we can stay open, and then also the impact that this would have on supply chains, which are already under tremendous stress, we are concerned. And unfortunately, for many of our member companies, they are running out of time. They may not be here come November, at least some of them. And so we need to get the economy back roaring again. And obviously, a step back in terms of the reopening phase would be a concern.
All right, make that the last point that you just brought up, that many of your member companies may not be here come the fall. You said how many? I mean, what type of closing up or bankruptcy filing might we see across this industry?
Well, it's hard to quantify, and obviously our goal as an industry, as an association, is to prevent that from happening. But when you look at some of our smaller and some of our medium-sized member companies who are still open, still operating, still making equipment, but with demand drying up, with cash reserves running out, and then if we see a spike in cases and perhaps the economy starting to slow down a little bit in terms of the reopening, that is going to have a chilling impact on them. And it's going to be tough to continue to stay open and to stay on the job if demand doesn't come back. There's real urgency here, as you said, Connell, and we really need to get the economy roaring again.
All right. All right, we'll leave it on that note, and we'll stay on top of all this. Good to see you again. Kip Eidelberg with us on equipment manufacturers. Melissa?